Welcome in, everybody, to the 423 Football Podcast. Today is our Overvalued / Undervalued wide receiver show, keeping it going. We talked running backs last week, quarterbacks the week before, but today's all about those wide receivers that are overvalued in drafts right now or undervalued. So I'm your host, Brandon Bouchard, joined here as always by Brett Hamilton.
Hello.
And before we get right into it, we're going to talk a little bit of news. Not much going on, but a few things to just check up on. Julian Edelman is appealing his suspension, his 4-game suspension for PEDs. That appeal is scheduled for Monday, and talks around the league are kind of leaning towards where he might actually have a case here. Obviously, I don't think anyone's won an appeal case like fully in a very, very long time, at least that I can remember. But this one, apparently I don't know exactly what the details are, but Julian Edelman says the test was mishandled. Like, the substance that triggered the positive PED test wasn't even identifiable by the league. So
I thought you meant someone dropped the vial and they just threw some dirt in there and said, "Yeah, that's it."
Yeah,
because they didn't want to call him back and say, "Hey, we messed up. Can you come back in?"
It was a urine test. They dropped half of the cup, so some other guy went and peed in it to fill it back up. No, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the details are, but
I think we just went over them.
Well, okay, yeah, it's one of the two. But anyway, Julian Edelman, the appeal is scheduled for Monday. We're obviously going to find out more about that in the coming weeks. Jameis Winston, he is expected to be suspended 3 games for violating the league's personal conduct policy. This is going back to, I can't remember the exact date, but going back to him, I think it was him groping some lady at a party, something like that. Kind of similar to what Zeke did on the boat a few years back. They got him in trouble. So, I mean, you're the resident Buck fan. I know it hurts to talk about, but
yeah,
definitely not a good situation for the Bucs right now.
No, I mean, I saw it coming, so I wasn't super shocked. And, I think 3 games is 1 game probably too strict, considering, nothing ever came up over about any of that stuff. But, it is what it is. I think that it's going to drop Mike Evans' value a little bit. And if he starts going at the back of the 3rd round, because his ADP right now is at 303, if he trickles back down to the back of the 3rd round, I will be all over that. I mean, I think that's an insane value.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk more about that once we get into the wide receiver segment. But, yeah, it does hurt Mike Evans' value. I assume Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be the guy. There has been rumors that I can't even remember the 3rd-string guy at the moment. But anyway.
Shoot. Yeah, I was just reading about it.
I did too. I'm just drawing a blank. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback.
He had to step in last year when Jameis was struggling with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And he did fine. He provided fantasy value to most of the wide receivers. And as far as Jameis, individually, I don't think anyone was going to start him in the first 3 weeks anyway because of his schedule.
They're tough.
It's and so most of what we've been saying is, you're gonna want to stream someone else for the first 3 weeks if you draft Jameis.
Yes.
Because it's just an awful opening schedule. So now you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I guess not. Randall Cobb has been seen wearing a walking boot. Apparently, he injured his ankle in practice, so they're going to apparently ease him into training camp. I don't think it's that serious. It's just something to monitor. Randall Cobb, I mean, he's been injured here and there over the past couple seasons, which is really not it's not the best thing for his fantasy value and his connection with Aaron Rodgers over the past couple years. But I still think, Cobb's going to be the number 2 guy this year. Again, wide receiver news. We'll be talking about that here in a minute. But, Randall Cobb, seen wearing a boot.
Ryan Griffin.
Ryan Griffin, yeah.
I knew it was Ryan something. I just could not think of it.
Yeah,
I
still think Fitzpatrick's, he's going to be the guy for the 3 games. And
yeah, me too.
We'll just see from there.
They may want to see what they have in Ryan Griffin, though. I mean, he's only 28 years old. It's his 5th year in the league. And, maybe he's seeing this as his shot to
dethrone Jameis.
No, but to at least
it happens all the time.
It does happen all the time, and I guess we'll just see.
Ryan Griffin's the next Brett Favre. Just watch, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, that was an old sentence.
Anyway, okay, meat and potatoes, overvalued wide receivers. You want to kick it off with your first one?
Well, why the heck not?
And again, this is based on current ADP on Fantasy Football Calculator. The ADPs are changing all the time. I guarantee if we were going to do running backs 2 weeks in a row, it would be completely different 1 week, and then the next week completely changed, all things like that. So This is just wide receivers based on the current ADP. Yep. So go ahead, kick it off.
I'm going to kick it off with old Allen Robinson. Going as the number 19 wide receiver at 506. Just got traded or signed with the Chicago Bears. And we've talked about the Bears, kind of rebuilding and reorganizing. They've brought in some new weapons. There's still some old faces there. Got a new coach. It's going to be a new offense. Yada, yada, yada. 506 that's pretty high. I mean, I think that's pretty high for a player coming off a knee reconstruction on a completely different team that's in the middle of changing offensive schemes. There's a lot of moving parts there.
With a quarterback that has not proven himself
whatsoever. We've got a second-year QB starting in Mitch Trubisky. He's completely unproven. We have no idea what he is. There's a lot of people that have a lot of faith in him, and that's fair, but we just don't know. I mean, you can't say for sure that he's gonna pan out. So, he was injured last year, missed the whole season. But in 2016, he was already starting to kind of fall off. That was you can blame that on bad quarterback play or whatever. But you can't really ignore the fact that he didn't have a touchdown in the last 6 games of the 2016 season. So that's not great.
Scoring opportunities is a big thing, and the Bears really haven't been able to get the ball in the end zone.
Exactly. So I think that this new offensive system is going to rely more on the short yardage, passing to the running backs and to the tight end. And I just don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of opportunity for Allen Robinson to put up these big numbers to justify spending a middle of the 5th round pick on a wide receiver in this kind of a situation. The Bears overall, they've never had a passer. They've never had a QB pass for more than 4,000 yards in the history of the organization. And the last 1,000-yard wide receiver that they had was in 2014 with Alshon Jeffrey. So they don't have a history of producing fantasy-relevant wide receivers overall. And I can't really say for certain that Allen Robinson is just going to be, just the go-to guy, that he's going to be the yardage guy, he's going to get the touchdowns. I just can't see it.
He's definitely the style of receiver that we've seen the Bears have the past couple years, like Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey. And, I mean, those guys put up some really good fantasy seasons. Yeah. But, again, that was with it's just night and
totally
day.
Different team.
There's so many questions to be asked, and I don't really want to take the risk of Allen Robinson in the 5th round.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of risk for compared to the other players going around him. Like, let's see, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think
I'd take Juju.
I'd take him. Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You're talking. I mean, even going further down. I mean, would you take Marvin Jones over him?
That's pushing it.
That would probably be the limit for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys even after that I might reach just because I like the upside a little. But, again, just so many questions. The knee, the offense, quarterback.
A lot of things have to go right for Allen Robinson to produce what he's drafted at right now. And it's just it's a risk that I don't think I'm going to be willing to take if his ADP doesn't.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the same thing with Jordan Howard. I like Jordan Howard. I think I like his talent, but he's on a crappy team, and that drops him a little bit. Jordan Howard would probably be a top 8 running back, maybe even top 5. Okay, not top 5. Top 6, 7, 8 running back. If it wasn't
he's got all the talent in the world.
Yeah,
it's just especially predicting predicting the whole Bears offense is hard since they're rejuvenating everything, but. Even he carries a lot of risks this offseason. I think he's safer, and I think his play style will pan out a little bit better on this new Bears team than Allen Robinson. But still, I mean, there's the risk that he's going to get overlooked.
Yep. All right, my first overvalued guy. I've talked about him a lot over the past 2 seasons, really.
Yeah,
but
I can't wait to hear more.
I'm not going to let it linger too long. But Brandon Cooks going as the wide receiver 17. Going in the 5th round, second pick of the 5th round currently, so a little bit ahead of Allen Robinson. But Brandon Cooks, again, he's going to the Rams, or he's on the Rams now. Jared Goff I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a promising young quarterback. but he's not Drew Brees and he's not Tom Brady.
Nope.
And I've said it before. I didn't think Brandon Cooks was going to have that great of a year with Brady or Breeze, just because I don't think Cooks is that good of a wide receiver. I still don't. I know the stats are there because they're inflated because of these good quarterbacks and these prolific offenses, but you see this all the time where mediocre players get on good offenses and they start to shine, and then maybe they transfer to another team and it goes downhill again. So Brandon Cooks is going to get his. I mean, he's been in the league a few years, but I feel like he's going to get a wake up call this year in the fact that he's not going to get the ball as much as he likes. He's not going to score as much as he likes. The yardage isn't going to be there as much as he likes, and especially the fact that he's on the Rams. They're going to use Gurley constantly. He's never been on a team where a running back has been the focal point of the offense. Never.
That's true.
That's never been the case. So Brandon Cooks going at wide receiver 17, I think it's absurd, honestly.
I think that's
and fifth,
way too high.
Yeah, wide receiver 17. That it might sound like there's not a lot of guys in front of him or behind him that he needs to be shifted around at. But 5th round, I honestly would rather take Robert Woods, who's going in the 9th, or Cooper Kupp, who's going in the 10th, over Brandon Cooks in the 5th, without a doubt. I
feel like with both of those guys, you just said that their target share is pretty much solidified. You know, they've got the rapport with Jared Goff. From 2017, Cooper Kupp had 94 targets. I mean, that's a huge target share, and that was the highest on the team.
It's only going to go up.
Which, I mean, they didn't have a player over 100 targets on the season, which means, you know, this new style of offense that Sean McVay is commanding, they're spreading the ball out. There's not one guy that's going to get all the targets. If you just assume that Brandon Cooks is going to go into the Sammy Watkins role, Watkins only had 70 targets. And that's like, I mean, that's in the range of like Torrey Smith, Jeremy Maclin, Ted Ginn, Pierre Garçon. Like, where's the fantasy value coming from?
And if you look at that, like, Watkins was the only reason he was even close to being fantasy relevant last year was because of his touchdowns.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks is not a red zone threat.
No.
He is not the guy you're looking to in the red zone. They're going to be looking for Kupp in the red zone. They're going to be looking for Woods over Cooks in the red zone. Yeah. Gurley is obviously the guy there.
Yeah.
And even the tight ends, Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, are probably going to get more looks in the red zones than Brandon Cooks will. Mm-hmm. So I say it every year. This year, I think I'm going to be actually right when it comes to the fantasy side of this because I still think I haven't seen anything special out of Brandon Cooks other than he can run really fast. Which, I mean, that's always a plus, but...
That's a good skill to have,
That's a good skill to have, but, I mean...
So can John Ross, and he didn't do anything last year.
Yeah, okay, well, whatever that means. But, yeah, Brandon Cooks, just too rich for my blood, once again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you are the resident Brandon Cooks hater, but I actually do agree that the top of the 5th round is extremely too high for me. So on to the next... my next overvalued player, wide receiver... is old Josh Gordon going as the number 14 wide receiver at 404. Still chugging away at the Browns. And kind of similar to the whole spiel about the Bears reorganizing, talk about changes. The Browns are going to look completely different next year. They've still got Duke Johnson, who they just gave a big old extension to because they love him there. They got Jarvis Landry, who is a target hog. You know, he was. I don't know how that's going to transfer to the Browns, but you have to assume that they didn't bring him in for 50 targets for 2018. So you got to factor that in. You've got David Njoku, who they drafted first round last year. You want to assume that they're going to get him more involved in the passing game. You've got a new quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, who's going to, as of now, starting the season. You've got Baker Mayfield, which, you know, I think we both agreed was not a great fit coming in as a rookie for the Browns. So if he takes over halfway in the season, who knows where it goes from there. So all of these things cultivate into just a big unknown puddle for Josh Gordon, and he carries such just a name tag of just the name that people are just so hype on, but he hasn't produced anything like what his peak was. I mean, the sample size is small from last year. It was like 5 or 6 games. I think 5 games. But I mean, it was nothing compared to, you know, 2013 when he put up a million numbers.
A million. Well, he put up all the
and
numbers.
That's hardly an exaggeration.
Like, honestly, just every single piece of the Browns offense, except
I
for...
didn't even talk about Nick Chubb or the running back situation.
Except for maybe a few guys on the offensive line. You can put a question mark on it. Like, if you're trying to project stats for these guys, it's going to be impossible. It's a shot in the dark with every single one of them. Jarvis Landry's probably not going to get the targets he did, which his fantasy production is going to dip. Jarvis Landry being there is going to make Josh Gordon not as relevant as he once was. He's not going to be this guy who could possibly... I don't think he's going to be a top 10 guy this year. And what do we say? He's going as a wide receiver 14. I don't think he's going to be top 15, honestly. I think there's guys that are better than him that have been doing this for a couple years because Josh Gordon, I mean, he's been out of the league for a while. I know the quarterback situation is definitely going to be the best he's had. Granted, that's not saying a lot. But, again, it's just question mark after question mark after question mark, and I don't want to plant my flag on Josh Gordon at wide receiver 14.
Not in the fourth round.
No, not in the fourth round.
And even just the Browns as a whole. I mean, every year we think the Browns are going to get better and better, and there's hype surrounding individual players. And it just seems year after year we just get let down. And, I don't think that they're going to go 0-16 again this year. I don't think they're that bad, but still, I mean, the management's still there. I mean, they've still got issues just playing games, and I'm not willing to place a bet on one wide receiver on one of the worst teams in the NFL at the top of the fourth round.
Yeah, and especially in the fourth round, there's still, I guarantee there are going to be a few running backs that are going to be, decently relevant in fantasy this year. Definitely. That could be a much better pick than Josh Gordon. It's just you can't. It's all name value right now with Josh Gordon. I get it. Yeah. It's a flashy name. Them posting pictures on Instagram and Twitter of him just looking ripped.
The hype train surrounding him is unstoppable.
No, I'm glad Steele isn't on the show because it would just steamroll. We'd be talking about this for another 30 minutes.
Yeah, we wouldn't get any. This episode would be 2 hours long.
Exactly. You know what he said to me the other day? He said, I'm conflicted between keeping Odell Beckham or Josh Gordon. That's all I need to say. Okay, moving on. Man. All right, my next guy, Will Fuller. Will Fuller going as wide receiver 28. He's in the top 30 wide receivers, Will Fuller is. Going in the 7th round, 10th pick of the 7th round, so back of it. Basically, the hype has gone through the roof with Will Fuller. I like the guy. I think he's talented, but what he did, I know Deshaun Watson is apparently going to be healthy back, and we saw what he did with Deshaun Watson. Obviously,
that was for like 85 touchdowns.
Okay, literally, with Deshaun Watson, 69.75 yards per game.
Wow.
And averaged 1.75 touchdowns per game. Nearly 2 touchdowns a game. That is absolutely, without a doubt, unsustainable. I don't care who your quarterback is.
No.
Don't care who it is. No. Without Deshaun Watson, which, again, take this with a grain of salt, because Watson is, we're hoping and assuming that he's going to be healthy and playing a full season, but without him, 24.3 yards per game, so that's a difference of almost 40, or over 40 yards, and 0 touchdowns per game. He did not score a touchdown with Deshaun Watson injured last year.
That's interesting. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, but again, Deshaun Watson should be playing,
yeah.
But wide receiver 28, my word. The guys going behind him, I think, are even some of the riskier guys I'd almost rather take over him because we've seen Will Fuller before Deshaun Watson and with Deshaun Watson.
There's a ton of guys that I would take over him behind him.
Just a few guys just near him that I would rather have. Corey Davis, I'd rather have. Emmanuel Sanders, I'd rather have. Mm-hmm. Chris Hogan, I'd rather have. Will Fuller is a nice player. Robert Woods, and you're right.
I definitely would.
Yeah, I'd take Robert Woods. But that's top 30 is a little much, guys. You're letting those few games get out of hand. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the guy, obviously. Which having Hopkins on the other side taking the double teams helps Fuller, but that touchdown rate is unsustainable. It's kind of the same argument I had with Alvin Kamara. I just don't think the touchdowns can last like that. It's just it's a little too much. So
Yeah.
just ease up on the Will Fuller hype for the moment.
At least with Kamara, you had a full season of it. With Will Fuller, you had 4 games?
Yeah, exactly.
So the sample size is really, really small. My last overvalued wide receiver, I think his name's come up a couple of times on the episode so far, but Sammy Watkins, going as the 30th wide receiver at the 802 position. He's played for a lot of teams over the past few years, but he's landed with the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going with Patrick Mahomes, another unproven QB, kind of the same situation or similar situation as Chicago. But looking at the Chiefs roster, I don't really know where Sammy Watkins fits into the picture because they don't need a deep ball guy because they have Tyreek Hill or Tyreek Hill, not Tariq.
You combine the speedsters.
You have no idea how many times I do that though. Tyreek Hill and who's one of the biggest deep ball threats from last year. Alex Smith is just balling out to him every game. The Bills needed a deep deep threat wide receiver, so it made sense for him to be on that roster, even though it obviously didn't really pan out. But they don't need him to do that, so I don't really know what they're thinking, how they're going to use him. I just don't see where he fits into that puzzle. And you can't forget about Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. It's going to kill me now that I'm thinking about it. Tyreek Hill, their percentage of targets, I don't really see them getting any less with Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Mahomes is going to, maybe the offense is going to look completely different than what it was last year. But, Andy Reid is still Andy Reid. He still has control of that team. And I still think that it's going to go a little around the same thing. So I just don't really see – I like Sammy Watkins' ability a lot. And it pains me that, top of the 8th round is a little too high for me. But I just don't see – I don't see the return on investment that late. I mean, there's multiple guys around him that I would rather take. I don't know how you feel about him.
It's a funny situation because I think Sammy Watkins, I think this is the best spot he's been in, honestly. I think it's even better than the Rams. I think it's better than the Bills when they were throwing him the ball left and right.
Yeah.
I think as long as he stays healthy, there's nothing reported out of camp, which, I mean, it's bound to happen considering his his track record.
Yeah.
But I believe that the Chiefs and Andy Reid, they are going to come out of the gates, opening game, week 1. They're going to let Patrick Mahomes sling it. They are really going to let him do his thing, and if it works out, I think it's going to keep going. And I think Tyreek Hill at his draft position right now, which I think is 8th or 9th, 10th right now. I think that's justifiable. I don't
have a problem with that.
I think Sammy Watkins could easily be a top 25 guy if Patrick Mahomes is clicking like that. Travis Kelce, we're taking him as a top 3 tight end.
Yeah.
But if they don't, if he does start to struggle, Mahomes, because obviously Mahomes, he's got the cannon for an arm. If they let him sling it, he's gonna have deep ball opportunities for Sammy Watkins. But if Mahomes starts to struggle, which I think that's what will hurt Watkins the most, they're going to run Kareem Hunt to death. And I don't really know, because I like Kareem Hunt's value this year regardless, because I know he does a lot of stuff out of the backfield in terms, in the passing game, receiving game, things like that. So I'm not worried about Kareem Hunt or anything, even if Mahomes is throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game.
Right.
But the receivers, and especially Sammy Watkins, because, again, new team, he's not really that proven of a guy yet. That could hurt him. But honestly, I think it's just very high ceiling, low floor kind of guy, Sammy Watkins. He could be a top 25, top 20 guy, but he could end up being a guy outside of the top 50.
Yeah.
So,
well, I thought his floor was low whenever he got moved to the Rams, but it was not a good showing there either. So I mean,
no, just touchdown guy there.
Yeah, and that was it. And I think he had 6 or something, maybe.
Yeah, he was up there.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the situations that could go either way. But I just don't really see him being an integral part of that offense going forward. And I'm not hating on Patrick Mahomes, but there's just a lot. He has to do a lot to really provide fantasy value to a lot of those players on that offense. And this is his first year he's got command of the team, so we'll just see how he does.
Yeah, I'll take him over Will Fuller, who's going 2 picks before.
I will definitely do that.
there you go. All right, my last overvalued guy. You're not going to like this one. I had to kind of throw this one at the end. Mike Evans. We kind of talked about him a minute ago with the Jameis Winston news. Mike Evans going as wide receiver 9, going at the top of the 3rd round. You said you'd draft him in a heartbeat if he fell to the back of the 3rd.
Oh, absolutely.
But he was the wide receiver 18 last year. So that's basically the equivalent of, or the wide receiver 18 this year, currently for ADP, is going in the 5th round. So it's wide receiver 18, only 5 touchdowns last year. Jameis most likely going to be suspended 3 games. I just think it's going to be a very, very tough and eye-opening season for Mike Evans. Eye-opening in the fact that I don't think that the quarterback of the future is on that team right now. And it might be tough to say at the moment. It might be just a bold prediction out of the dark, but I think in a few years the Bucs are going to have a totally different quarterback. I think Mike Evans is going to stick around. I think he's going to be the focal point of that team for a long time. He's going to be kind of what Des Bryant was trying to be with the Cowboys. Just that guy. He's going to stick around. He's going to be the guy, kind of like A.J. Green too. Yeah. So Mike Evans, I like him. He's super talented, super athletic, a touchdown machine, or a red zone machine, I should say, because he didn't score a lot last year.
No.
But I just, at the moment, I'm not liking him. I'm not taking him in the top 10. So there's just so many other guys I'd rather have behind him that I think are even safer for whatever reason. Doug Baldwin, I'd much rather have. T.Y. Hilton, if Andrew Luck's healthy. Adam Thielen, amen. Just amen to Adam Thielen.
Yeah. The lowest I could see him go. I mean, I couldn't imagine him going anywhere. Doug. There's that block below him, but then after T.Y. Hilton, I can't see him going anywhere lower than that.
I'd take Amari.
Really?
I would.
Oh wow, that's not.
I'd
that's
consider
not good.
Alshon. I'd even consider Juju.
What?
I honestly would.
Oh my gosh, this is so hot takey. What?
I honestly would.
Juju?
It's not even.
Wow.
That
one is shocking. Amari Cooper, I can see that for you, but Juju, that one is shocking.
For me. No, I'll save that last name. I'm not even going to say it right now. But actually, I'll mention it here in a minute in my undervalued guys.
Oh, okay. I can't wait for that.
Go ahead and kick off the undervalued so we can get to it.
Okay, undervalued. Coming in at number 1 for me, Randall Cobb. Going currently as the 38th wide receiver at 10.05. This is such an interesting situation because he hasn't done a whole lot recently. It's kind of like that old adage, what have you done for me lately? Well, he hasn't done a whole heck of a lot. Last year, you got to throw that one out the window because Aaron Rodgers was injured most of the year. But so I'm not expecting him to return to his ultra high 2014 numbers. But why couldn't he perform the stat line of 2015, which was 79 receptions for 829 yards and 6 touchdowns?
Absolutely doable.
That would have been that would put him last year as the PPR wide receiver number 26. Why couldn't he do that? So I think 38th is just mind-bogglingly low, and he's got more upside because he's on a prolific offense. The offense looks different without Jordy Nelson. He's in my mind he's first up to be the true number 2 on that roster behind Devontae Adams. Let's not pretend like Geronimo Allison is going to be the number 2. I think he's got a place on that team and he's super talented, but I think Randall Cobb's got the first shot there.
Yeah, especially being the slot guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm more than happy to draft Randall Cobb as a wide receiver 3 with the potential upside to be an every week wide receiver 2, in my opinion.
That you put that phenomenally well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Randall Cobb. It's all about if they can both him and Aaron Rodgers if they can stay healthy. If they're both
there's
healthy,
there's always the injury concern.
Yeah. But if they're healthy for 16 games, and again, Rodgers coming off the collarbone injury, Cobb apparently in a walking boot right now, so we're gonna have to see. But
yeah, no,
yeah.
After I picked that, I was like the walking boot thing. So I was already iffy about the injury risk, but then he's like, oh, he's already in a boot.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't really know much about it right now. But if they are both healthy. That stat line you said, over 800 yards and 6 touchdowns, that's honestly maybe a floor for Randall Cobb. I mean, the sky's the limit when they're both healthy. Yeah. I mean, you go back, again, talking about the 2014 numbers, he's only a few years removed from 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know he can do it. And, 2015 was modest, but, I mean, I don't think over 800 yards is undoable on that offense. I mean, you know Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 1 million yards. You know he's going to throw for 500,000 touchdowns. They've got to go somewhere. And if you're the number 2 wide receiver on the Green Bay Packers, you are going to provide more value than a 10th round.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's a fact.
Yeah, without question. And there are a ton of targets to go around now that Jordy's gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to go somewhere. Randall Cobb's definitely going to be a benefactor. Jimmy Graham, obviously, coming in,
see how that
is going to be a benefactor.
Pans out,
but yeah, Randall Cobb, I definitely agree. Very, very undervalued at the moment.
Yeah.
And that freaking thunder, man. Out of nowhere.
No, it really did come out of nowhere. A storm was blown in.
I don't know if you guys can hear that, but
yeah, I know.
That'd be interesting.
It really came out of nowhere.
Okay, back to undervalued. My first guy, the guy I said I would be tempted to take over Mike Evans. I'll just go ahead and start it now. Demaryius Thomas.
I don't hate that as much as I hate Juju Smith-Schuster.
All right. Demaryius Thomas going as a wide receiver, 22 at the moment, going in the 5th round, or the back of the 5th round. Demaryius Thomas obviously has not shown up the past couple years in fantasy. He's been a good yardage guy. He's been close to 1,000 yards almost every year, and it's mainly his lack of production has been mainly due to horrendous quarterback play. Like, even the last year of Peyton Manning, it was horrendous quarterback play. So now we have Case Keenum coming in, and this is at least Case Keenum has some experience, some veteran experience that these Brock Osweilers and Trevor Siemians and Paxton Lynch's, those guys they weren't getting it done. I don't think they're ever going to get it done. So now Demaryius is back to having hopefully a quarterback that can do what he did a year ago in Minnesota, which was put up a very good fantasy season, elevate Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs to incredibly fantasy relevant wide receivers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, Demaryius Thomas, just what he's done in the past, at least 5 touchdowns in the last 6 seasons. Yeah. That's always nice to have. Even though he's not really been known as a touchdown guy, he does get the touchdowns. In 2017, that was his first year under 1,000 yards since 2011. I fully expect him to be back over 1,000 yards in 2018, and he's always a lock for 140 targets. Give me those target numbers, and especially with a good quarterback where those targets are actually finding him, I'm taking Demaryius Thomas all day at his current ADP, and I think he's going to shoot up even more as the preseason and training camp goes along.
Yeah, no, I really do like that pick, and I wouldn't take him in front of Mike Evans, but I'm more okay with that. I think the upside potential of Demaryius Thomas is pretty high for this year. If Case Keenum can really get that offense back on track, then I have to believe, Emmanuel Sanders is still there. I still think Demaryius Thomas is more of a lock to get those receptions, and he's just a more consistent player, less injury risk, all of that combined into one. But he is a lock for 140 targets, and in an offense that's good, he's going to have more opportunities to get the touchdowns. I have no doubt he'll have more than 5 touchdowns this year. I mean, that to me is a low end.
Yeah, and just as a caveat, because me and Brett were talking before the show. I said I was going to have like a combo package with one of these undervalued guys. Emmanuel Sanders, who we were just talking about, I think he's undervalued as well, just because no one's getting that Broncos Case Keenum hype yet. I don't think it's shown up yet, but Emmanuel Sanders is going as a wide receiver 35 in the 9th round. Kind of the same thing you were saying with Randall Cobb. They're both, I'd be more than happy to draft them as my wide receiver 3, and I'm going to be thrilled when they put up wide receiver 2 numbers.
Yeah. So you could probably say that Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are like the crystal sack full of wide receivers this year.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, man.
Just go.
That's
stop,
disgusting.
Stop mocking me.
Okay. All right. My next undervalued... Oh, man, I almost skipped one. My next undervalued wide receiver is Sterling Shepard, going as the 48th wide receiver at 12-10. That's kind of weird, 12-10. For the he's still with the New York Giants. Still got Odell Beckham. They've added Saquon Barkley. Eli Manning's play has been questionable, but I'll just start it off with this stat. In 2017, he's going as the 48th wide receiver. In 2017, he finished as the PPR wide receiver 42, and he played in 11 games. And he's going as the 48th wide receiver.
And that's when the Giants were complete garbage.
Yes.
Garbage.
So I really don't see how he can't overperform at the 12-10 position. That's just me. I just wanted to lead off with that because that stat was just mind blowing to me. He definitely will be competing for targets. There's no competition. OBJ is going to get all the targets.
All of them. Every single one.
Yeah.
100%.
And Evan Ingram, he's kind of a rising star there. Saquon Barkley hopefully is going to open up the passing game a little bit. Teams are going to have. I think this teams are going to have to stack the box a little bit more, and that's going to open up stuff for the passing weapons for the Giants. I view Sterling Shepard as one of the more safe wide receiver 3 options. Because he's not just a guy that they just threw in there and they just kind of to take guys away from Odell Beckham. Like, they use him and they want to use him. So I feel like, he does have an injury concern, but Eli Manning trusts him, and I feel like adding Saquon Barkley is going to help Eli Manning's play. Unless he just tanks and he's just not good anymore. If he's just old and decrepit, then
there's always that question.
Yeah, there is always that question. But I think that adding a solid running back is something that they haven't had in a long time. Is just going to help the offense overall. And I feel like that Sterling Shepard is a steal if he goes in the 12th round now. Because the 48th wide receiver overall. I don't know why it's being disrespected so much. Maybe it's coming off the injury. I don't know.
Injury and just a poor Giants season.
Yeah.
All right, my second guy, Pierre Garçon. Pierre Garçon going as a wide receiver 34 at the moment. 9th round, 6 picks of the 9th round. I will say, first of all, Pierre Garçon has been a very solid wide receiver when he's healthy. He's done it for years now. He did it with Washington. He did it with Indy. He was even doing it with San Fran there for a while until his injuries. And the only thing that's in question right now is the fact that he's never played a game with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp, in OTAs, in the preseason, I think Pierre Garçon is going to be his guy. I think he's much more of a possession type of guy that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to trust. A guy that, honestly, could really fit into what Jimmy Garoppolo could have done in New England. I feel like that style of play Jimmy Garoppolo learned in New England is going to really help him mesh with Pierre Garçon. I know Marquise Goodwin is a flashy guy just because of the speed, and they really had a connection last year. And I think Goodwin's going in the 9th as well, just a little bit behind Pierre Garçon, which I have no problem with that. But Pierre Garçon, I think, is being overlooked at the moment just because, again, he's coming off an injury. He hasn't played with Jimmy Garoppolo, and obviously it's 49ers team that really hasn't produced recently. But there are guys in front of Garçon that I would absolutely take Pierre Garçon over. Like Devin Funchess, I'd take him over. Edelman, who most likely is going to be suspended, and maybe Edelman's ADP is inflated right now because he hasn't been or the appeal hasn't gone through. Will Fuller, I'd take Pierre Garçon over Will Fuller. Even Crabtree, I'd take him over. I mean, there's guys, maybe even, honestly, okay, that's a little bit of a hot
take. If you were going to say Mike Evans,
I'm
going to throw you out the window.
And honestly, I might take him over Mike Evans.
That's how you're going to end every single one of your guys you talk about.
No.
Oh, my gosh.
No, but Pierre Garçon, I really like him this year, and I think he's going to have a very, very solid year with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to switch my last two because I really like this one that I want to save for last.
Go for it.
But this one's going to be Paul Richardson. This one's more of a sleeper than an undervalued because he's going for free. He's going undrafted in a lot of drafts right now. He's a 59th overall wide receiver. Again, after the 50s, you're talking just flyers at that point. But at 1406 when he is drafted, that's his average. So last year was his first full season in the NFL, and he had 44 receptions for 703 yards and 6 touchdowns, which is pretty modest. I mean, I feel like that was a good stat line. He was a super red zone threat. With the 6 touchdowns, that was good. So now he goes to Washington, who has a new quarterback, Alex Smith, who likes to move around and extend the play and throw deep. He has the highest deep passer rating. I think I'm saying that right. Deep passer rating last year. Of course, he had weapons like Tyreek Hill that kind of helped that a lot.
Yeah, that's a little bit inflated. It's very inflated because Alex Smith has never been the guy to throw deep ever.
But it was definitely inflated last year. But he can do it. He can now because he did it. And so Paul Richardson can definitely fill that role. Jameson Crowder is going to be the mid-range guy. He's going to
see. I like Crowder a lot more than Richardson this year.
Well, I'm not saying I'd take Richardson over Crowder. I'm just saying Richardson should go higher in my opinion.
Okay. Sorry.
And then they still have Josh Doxson, but he's going to be the more I think more of the short range guy. But Paul Richardson is in my mind locked in as the deep threat. If Jordan Reed can stay healthy, he's going to draw defenders because he's really good when he plays. He just doesn't play that often, which is the problem. So that could open up some situations where Paul Richardson's one-on-one with cornerbacks, which I think he can beat all day. In my mind, I would draft him. I would still draft him late. I mean, I'm not saying he should go in like the 10th or 9th, 8th round, but I could draft him and then hold him to see what that offense looks like in the first few weeks. And in my mind, I could see him moving into what he was last year, which was a sometimes wide receiver 3 or sometimes a safer flex option with the upside of a touchdown. In my mind, that's what he is.
Okay. I mean, I'm tending to stay away from just Washington players altogether this year.
I know, we've talked about that and how we don't think Washington's going to be very good, but
that late round, I guess if you want to take him as a flyer, feel free. There's a few guys I'd rather take around him, but if they're gone, I guess I'd take a flyer on Richardson as well.
Yeah.
All right, my last undervalued guy, first rookie I think on our list so far, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 47 at the moment, going in the 12th round.
That is super low.
I'm just gonna go ahead and make my bold prediction for Calvin Ridley.
Oh. If you say you're going to draft him over Mike Evans.
No. Well, it's very borderline. I wouldn't be shocked if he went there.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, anyway.
Oh, my
bold
gosh.
prediction for Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver this year.
Woo!
Top 20 wide receiver.
That is a bold prediction.
And, I mean, if I said I'd take Juju over Mike Evans, and he's at the 20th spot right now. So
you might.
There's guys that'll move up and down. But
Calvin
Ridley, I think, is going to be very, very explosive in this Falcons offense. Obviously, Julio Jones is going to be the guy, but Calvin Ridley being there is going to open everything up. That is the piece that offense has been missing. That really, really quick route running guy. Julio's obviously he can do it all. They have misused him a lot in the past couple years, and we know what Mohamed Sanu can be. He's solid, but Calvin Ridley is going to change that offense in a big way. They're going to be clicking just like the year they went to the Super Bowl. Again, I think there are other problems that team has at the moment, but in terms of fantasy, I think Calvin Ridley is honestly a lock for 1,000 yards and at least 5 touchdowns. I think he's going to have a wide receiver 20 year. He's obviously going 27 spots removed from the top 20 at the moment.
Yep.
I think it's going to keep rising because I believe just even like a month ago, Calvin Ridley was. I don't even think he was being drafted at the moment. Even guys like Christian Kirk, I think, were being taken in front of him. Yeah. Terrell Pryor was being taken in front of him. But now Calvin Ridley, he's moving up, and I think it's going to keep moving up as the season.
I can definitely see it going, moving up from where he is now.
Yeah,
that just sounds just super low.
As the season gets closer, I think it's going to keep rising. There's always, rookies always come in and do stuff that kind of surprises people. Juju was the guy last year from the wide receiver position. We had Tyreek Hill the year before, but this year it's going to be Calvin Ridley. I can guarantee he's definitely in the best situation. He was the best wide receiver in the draft in my mind, and he's on an offense that can really, really get the ball in his hands. So Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 20, I'm calling it now.
Whew. Well, you heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
I know you heard it here first because no one else would have said that.
Hey, that's what makes us the best.
I know. That's why it's called a bold prediction.
Exactly.
My last one. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Will you shut up now?
I've been talking about Calvin for a while.
No, I'm just kidding.
And I'd take him over Mike Evans.
Oh my gosh. Just throw that in at the end. Okay, whatever. But this last one I'm pretty excited about. Allen Hurns. Now, this is the first time I've ever got excited about a Dallas player. I will boldly say that. I'm not excited about any of them. But he's currently going as the 43rd wide receiver at 1108 position. So, here's the layout for the targets for Dallas. In 2017, Dez Bryant and Jason Witten combined for 219 targets. And they accounted for 15 touchdowns out of a total 22 for the team. They're both gone. So where are the targets going is my question. You've got Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, and Michael Gallup. That's not exactly household name brands, you know? They're not the name brand that you're looking for. So my first inclination is just I'm not saying Allen Hurns is going to be the next Dez Bryant. That's not what this argument's about. But I'm saying he's 6'3", and 205. He's going to be a goal line target. That's definitely not going to be Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, Michael Gallup.
Now, when you say he's not going to be the next Dez Bryant, I understand what you're saying. Like his style of play isn't going to be the next Dez Bryant. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I don't see why his numbers can't be.
Well, okay, yeah, I'm not, yeah, okay.
Maybe not the touchdowns so much, but
yeah.
I think again, like you said, the targets and receptions have to go somewhere, and Allen Hurns is the only proven guy on that roster.
Allen Hurns is proven, and he's never been on a team without another elite wide receiver in air quotes. I don't know why I did that on a podcast. You can't see that, but
I saw it, guys. Don't worry, guys, I saw it.
Yeah, it happened. But in 2015, he had 64 receptions for 1,031 yards and 10 touchdowns, and that was with Allen Robinson, the aforementioned.
And Blake Bortles.
Yes, and Blake Bortles.
Granted, Dak isn't. I don't think he's that special either, but
yeah. And that's another thing that I wanted to bring up is I don't have a whole lot of faith in Dak, but just the pure lack of targets that have just vacated the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't see anyone else that can fill those shoes other than Allen Hurns on that roster. Even his rookie season, he went 51 for 677 and 6 touchdowns, and he had a terrible catch percentage of 52.6%. And of course, that was his rookie season. And even if that was in 2017, just last year, he would have finished as around the wide receiver 38. So he's already. Even if that's his floor, which I don't see how that could be. I don't see how he has less than 51 receptions on this Dallas team. So I just don't think 43rd is just so low. And, it could turn around and bite me. They could just be terrible and not pass at all and just hand it off to Zeke every single down.
Very understandable.
But, to me, he's the goal line guy. He's the most talented wide receiver that they have. They have no one to fill the spots that they just lost. The door is wide open for Allen Hurns to come in and fill that spot.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's going to be all of our undervalued guys. Before we end the show, just real quick, because we're almost at an hour, just give me one guy, like a super late round undervalued guy, kind of almost like a sleeper that we haven't talked about. Give me one guy that you are taking very late as kind of a flyer.
I'm going to go with a couple. I'm going to go with Deshaun Jackson. Now, when I say that, everyone just envisions like lining up at the Senior Citizen Center and to get the discount card, because that's in everyone's mind. That's what he is. But he is still super talented. He's still fast. He can still outrun most defenses. Last year was his first year with the Buccaneers, so trying to forge that chemistry with Jameis Winston was a struggle. He had
and it's going to be even more of a struggle with him suspended for 3 games.
Yeah, that's going to that kind of messes things up. But he still had over 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. But that should have been, there was 3 opportunities I know of that Jameis just missed him by a hair that would have added a lot of yards and 3 more touchdowns to his stat line. And his catch percentage was 55.6, which is the lowest since like 2012 for him when he played 11 games. So that's just, that's just out of the ordinary for him. So I think that, he's going, like I said, these are sleepers. He's going completely undrafted. I think you can do a lot worse than Deshaun Jackson.
My guy is Christian Kirk. Another rookie on the list. I talked about Calvin Ridley, but Christian Kirk going even later, wide receiver 71 at the moment. Obviously, new piece of the Cardinals, and then Josh Rosen or Sam Bradford is going to be his quarterback when they really start clicking. But Christian Kirk, other than Larry Fitzgerald, that team doesn't have a wide receiver 2 at the moment. So Christian Kirk, the spot is available for him, and I think he's going to fill it very, very well. Not really. I don't think he's going to jump to that wide receiver 3 territory just yet, but I fully expect him to put up a few wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2 games. It'll be up and down just because he's a rookie, but Christian Kirk, I think, is a great late round guy you can plant your flag on, I should say, in drafts.
Plant your flag right on him.
Plant it. Can you please talk about your other guy, because we both had him written down. And
okay, yeah.
I definitely want to talk a little.
Yeah, I mentioned him when we were talking about Brandon Cooks. John Ross, another speedster that just it was proof last year that speed is not everything in the NFL. Much like Brandon Cooks, we just don't think that he's as good as everyone else does. But one thing that they both have in common is they are speedsters. But he was the 9th overall pick last year. They want to use him. They want to get him involved. And last year it just didn't pan out. But
injuries and everything like that.
Yes, he is just so ultra talented that you can't ignore him. He has so much upside potential in my mind that he's definitely worth a roster spot. He's one of those guys that in the first couple of weeks, he's going to be the hot waiver wire ad, I think. There's a lot of things about the Bengals that I don't like, but I think that John Ross can really step into a solid role this year. AJ Green kind of had a down year last year. I think the whole offense had a pretty rough time last year, but if they can get it on board and if he stays healthy, I think that he has so much upside potential.
Yeah, I definitely agree. John Ross, again, just talking about speed, he was injured last year. I think he's going to have a very, very, very solid sophomore season. Mm-hmm. I will say before we close out the show, I just as like a package deal caveat to the late round flyers, I don't know which one it's going to be. I don't know which one I'm going to be taking. But one of the Packer wide receivers, going other than Devontae and Randall Cobb, which we talked about earlier, one of those guys is going to hit. I haven't quite decided which one I'm planting my flag on yet.
Depends on which day of the week someone's asking.
Exactly. But Geronimo Allison, Jamon Moore, ESB, one of them's going to hit. And I'm...
Can you please say his whole name?
Give
him a respect.
He knows who he is. He probably doesn't even want to say it.
No. I bet he hates filling out forms.
Oh, God. I guarantee he just signs ESB. Guarantee it. But yeah, one of those guys is going to hit. And there's always wide receiver 3s on the Packers always have fantasy relevance. Yeah. So it's one of the guys. I don't know. Again, I don't know which one. I'll figure that out. Don't worry. At the moment, I'm probably leaning towards Geronimo Allison, but
yeah.
But we'll just, again, it's going to change within the next couple
I'll keep
months.
my phone by me, and you just ring me whenever you figure it out.
Yeah, I will. Brad will keep you guys updated.
You'll call me at like 4 o'clock in the morning one morning.
I finally decided. And then I hang up, and I call you again the next night. I changed my mind.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be the show for today. Again, guys, sorry that we had to shift this over to Wednesday. But again, with my job now, I have to be working on weekends sometimes with our we got home games and things like that going on the weekend. So during that time, I know it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks as well. So we're going to have to shift things around. We might not get our episodes out every Monday. We might not be able to start doing 2 or 3 a week until later in the preseason, but just stick with us. We're going to be here. We're not closing up shop just yet. As long as you guys will keep listening, we're going to keep talking. So, again, that's all for today. We'll be back next week for tight ends, overvalued and undervalued. And hopefully that will be released on Monday. We should be able to make that happen. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at the423football. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube. Give us a like. Leave your comments and reviews. Thanks for listening. We are the 423 Football Podcast.
Peace out.